The daily commute from the suburbs to downtown
means you are going to be traveling very slow this morning.
Is it just us, or is traffic actually getting worse?
Burning gas, wasting time, and getting nowhere. The countless problems associated with low-density suburbia have been discussed quite a lot. So, how can we design better places to live that help combat these issues? This is Weespersluis, a new suburban development on Amsterdam's outskirts and a great example of a well-designed suburb. There is a mix of building typologies, public green spaces, traffic-calm streets, bike lanes, and car-free areas. Typical North American suburbs have only single-family homes. In contrast, the Dutch suburb features a variety of building types and offers daily amenities within a short walk or bike ride. The way we design and build our housing influences how people move around. Land use and transport are interdependent. Building single-family homes spreads destinations apart and forces people to drive. Dutch urban planners have addressed these problems, achieving an almost perfect balance between private space, like having a backyard, proximity to amenities, and the ability to make daily trips without needing a car. Today, we will look into why we need to build more dense neighborhoods, how we can design them, and what we can learn from different suburban designs. Having a big house with a large lawn can be great, but it has a significant trade-off. When most people live this way, everyone is forced to drive. You can't walk to a grocery store, you're not going to cycle, and public transport is probably non-existent. However, this issue isn't unique to North America. Countries like the UK and Ireland have car-centric suburbs, although with higher densities than the US. And many places in Australia and New Zealand look almost the same as in the US. So it's not just America and Canada that has to fix its development patterns. To understand this better, we need to look at the land use transport feedback cycle. But for simplicity, let's take North America as an example, as this is what most people are familiar with. Spatial policies play a key role in determining land use, while factors like regional demand, available land, and attractiveness of an area also influence how land is used. Unfortunately, in North America, these policies often permit the development of low-density, single-use zoning neighborhoods, which separates people's homes from everyday destinations like workplaces and shops. These land use patterns shape where people's daily activities occur, such as where they live, work, and spend their free time. To get to all the different places, people will have to travel, generating travel demand. This travel demand, in turn, influences how the transport network is developed. When destinations are spread far apart, like in North America, people will inevitably need to drive, increasing the demand for car infrastructure and further influencing the transport network's design. The quality of this transport network affects how accessible locations are, meaning how easy it is to reach them. If a place is accessible only by car, it becomes less attractive. But if it can be reached by public transport and bicycle, it generally becomes more appealing for development. This can lead to changes in land use patterns, thus repeating the land use transport feedback cycle. The key takeaway is that higher densities are a prerequisite for enabling people to walk, cycle, or take public transport. But this doesn't mean that everyone has to live in an apartment building. Families often seek a peaceful living environment with private green spaces, which is where suburbs come in. But they need to be designed properly. When walking through the Dutch neighborhood, you'll notice that it feels denser than a typical suburb with only detached homes. This is because there's a mix of housing types or building typologies. There are apartment buildings, townhouses, semi-detached homes, and detached homes. The architecture is inspired by local traditions, giving the area a charming appearance instead of regular designs like this. Well, not every building is perfect, it's an improvement over regular designs like this. If we imagine a typical North American suburban street, we don't have a mix of building typologies, it's just single-family homes that take up quite a bit of space. In Dutch suburbs, you'll notice several typologies on the same street. There are townhouses, semi-detached, and attached houses. This is often referred to as the missing middle. In North America, you often only have a choice between living in a house or an apartment building. So, what should suburbs look like? Rather than only building single-family homes, which not everybody wants or can afford, we can introduce a mix of housing typologies. We'll start with a few townhouses. These homes offer both front and back gardens while being more affordable due to their smaller size. Townhouses are one of the most effective building typologies, striking a perfect balance between offering private gardens and achieving a density level that supports community needs. Next, we'll add semi-detached houses. These are single buildings divided into 2 residences, allowing both families to have their own front and back gardens. This is essentially a larger townhouse, but it offers the option of a driveway or a garage, giving homeowners added flexibility. Finally, we'll include a detached home for those who prefer a larger house surrounded by a lawn. With this mix, our street now features 3 distinct building types: townhouses, semi-detached houses, and detached houses. When we compare this to a typical North American suburb, we can see that by mixing typologies and building more compactly, we've doubled the dwelling density. Instead of just 3 families on the street, we can now accommodate 6 families. When applied on a neighborhood scale, this increased density can support amenities like schools and shops within walking distance. Cycling is also a viable option, and Dutch children can safely walk or bike to school and visit their friends. This higher density is important for maintaining high-quality public transport. In our suburb, a train station is only a few minutes away. However, the mixed-use area in the middle of the neighborhood is what enables residents to live in detached houses while still having amenities nearby and avoiding the need to drive. These apartment buildings will not only support more affordable housing, but will create a larger tax base and generate enough demand to sustain shops and efficient public transport. With more residents contributing taxes, there's also enough money to invest in well-designed, safe streets that can be maintained in the future. Like all public spaces in the Netherlands, the suburb is carefully divided into traffic and residential areas. Traffic areas include separated bike lanes, and at crossings, traffic islands are used to improve pedestrian safety by allowing them to cross one lane at a time while enhancing visibility and slowing down drivers. In residential areas, cars and bikes share the road. The roadway is made of bricks, which looks nicer than asphalt, but also naturally slows down vehicles and signals to drivers that they are in a residential zone. Raised intersections further slow traffic, and drivers are required to yield to anyone coming from the right. Streets come in different widths. Some are wide, others are narrower, and some have a canal alongside the street. The suburb also offers excellent public spaces where residents can gather, relax by the canal, enjoy picnics, and stroll along walking paths. Unlike North American suburbs, public space here isn't exclusively dedicated to parking, although there's still plenty of parking available. On this particular street, parking is at the same level as the pavement, which visually narrows the roadway. Pay attention to the thoughtful design details: sloped curbs, sloped surface drains, and white-colored bricks marking parking spaces. There are even symbols on the ground to indicate where residents should place their bins and designated parking spots for electric cars. Several on-street charging stations are available, making it convenient for residents to own electric vehicles without needing a driveway. People can also charge their EVs at the nearby train station, where there is plenty of car parking and bicycle parking. Some of it is conveniently located under a roof, and there are also designated parking areas for cargo bikes, scooters, and motorcycles. However, perhaps the best design feature of the suburb is that cars aren't allowed to go everywhere, which creates incredible living environments. There are pedestrian-only canal fronts, small alleyways, and bridges dedicated to pedestrians and cyclists that significantly improve walkability. But the most impressive areas are the public green spaces. I mean, just look at how beautiful they are. Some houses have a small front garden with a shared green space or playground in the middle. Motor vehicles are not permitted in these spaces, but cars can still access most buildings from the back. So, how did they design the place so well? Older suburbs in the Netherlands will have on-street parking and might have a driveway, and people have their private green spaces in the back. But the biggest problem is that children can't really play in the front yard as cars are passing by. So it's just a space where to park your car. So the typical Dutch suburb has a backyard, on-street parking, and a front yard that nobody spends really any time in. To fix this, we will create a pedestrianized green space where we can put in tables and benches and a playground. Since there are no cars, this layout allows children to safely play with their neighbors rather than being isolated in their backyards. Residents still have their backyards and they can access their homes by car from the small street in the back. Some residents have fully enclosed garages, while others are happy with a carport or an open parking space. Some are fine without a designated parking spot and park on the street, as certain houses don't come with designated parking spaces. So some houses will have an enclosed garage, some will have a carport or an open parking space. Creating denser suburbs like this one isn't about taking away people's cars. It's about offering the choice to not rely on car ownership with the ability to cycle or take public transport. And of course, it's about giving children the freedom to move around independently by bicycle or public transport, rather than relying on their parents to drive them around everywhere. While the suburb is just 10 minutes away from one of the world's most expensive real estate markets, Amsterdam, and thus isn't the cheapest, it serves as a model for how to build beautiful and sustainable communities. And
if you happen to get stuck in traffic today, just think of this image.